If you've dreamed of making custom engraved tumblers that look good enough to sell on Etsy, then stick around. I'm going to show you how to make a full wrap tumbler like this one and a custom logo engraved tumbler with the xTool rotary attachment. The RA2 Pro is an accessory that's compatible with the M1, S1, D1 Pro, and P2 laser machines. With this attachment, you can engrave round and cylindrical objects. On machines like the M1, you'll need a riser base or wooden risers if you're planning to use the rotary tool. On the P2, you can get away without a riser base only for objects with a diameter less than 42 millimeters. When you receive your RA2 Pro, you'll see it in the roller mode configuration. This is great for objects that are perfectly cylindrical, like this Dollar Tree glass mason jar I engraved in an earlier video. For objects longer than the rotary attachment, you can also use this support module that comes with the RA2 Pro. This is great for something like a wine glass, and we're also going to use it when we get to our tumblers in just a minute. You can adjust the rollers, by the way, to any of 3 positions if you have a perfectly cylindrical tumbler. To engrave things like tapered tumblers, mugs, spheres, or rings, you'll need to change your setup to the chuck rotary. I have my parts for the chuck rotary laid out here, and for tumblers, we won't be using this tail module. That's for spheres, so I can move that to the side. We also won't need these stud components, so you can make sure you store those away. We will, however, use the support module, so keep that handy. Let's go ahead and switch these rollers out. I'm going to go ahead and flip my tool over and start unscrewing these pieces. The RA2 Pro comes with 2 sets of hex screwdrivers, so you'll have to pick the size that fits, and just start by undoing the end of the roller piece here. As we do this, take a minute and let me know down in the comments what you're planning to engrave. Once you have those pieces unscrewed, you can flip the unit back over, and you should be able to remove one of the rollers. Just make sure you have a spot where you can store this away so you won't lose it when you need to switch this back. Then for the second roller, you'll have to unscrew 2 very small screws right here on this metal piece. So once you do that, you'll be able to remove that roller as well. These 2 screws are really tiny, so I like to include them in a Ziploc and store them away in my craft room closet. That way I know exactly where to find them when I need to switch my rotary back. Now let's put the chuck together, starting with this little end piece that will fit into the slot right here next to where it says xTool. Again, there are some really tiny screws that you want to screw in here. There are 2 of them, so make sure that you rotate it to find the other one once you install the first one. Next, we're going to install that chuck piece with the rubber band around it. That's what's going to rotate our rotary tool here. Then you take the long screws, place them on top, and tighten them into place. Here's where you might need to mix a little bit of art and science to figure out the right jaw components for your specific tumbler. You have the double step jaw components and single step jaw components. For my particular tumbler that I'm starting with, it has a rounded bottom, so I'm going to use these single step jaw components. When you attach this to the rotary tool, it can actually go one of 2 directions. It can have the larger piece facing outward or facing inward, and you may have to experiment a little bit to see what is going to fit your tumbler the best. I'm going to go ahead and screw in all 3 pieces, and then I'll show you how this works to grip your tumbler around the opening. Once the jaw components are in, you can use this key to open the jaw and close it. You can grab a tumbler from the outside like this, or have it inserted into the tumbler and grip it from the inside where it would be pushing outward. You can also move this bottom panel to the right, and that way you can rotate something like a mug with a handle by propping the rotary up. I'm using this stainless steel powder-coated tumbler, and I'm going to open up the jaw component with the key and grip it from the outside. Just make sure you're using a tumbler that's compatible with your machine. I want to grip just the silver rim of the tumbler and not get too much of the powder coating, because this is a full wrap tumbler and I want my design to completely fill it as much as possible. Once I have it nice and snug, I'm going to use this level to determine if I need to raise the end of it, and I do just a little bit, so I'm going to again use that support module and just turn the dial to lift the tumbler slightly. Then I'll measure again and make sure it's even all the way around, but we're going to repeat this once we put our rotary in the machine. The last step you want to do is measure the perimeter of your tumbler around the midpoint and then determine where you put your riser base. Here I'm using it at the gamma or Y-shaped level. You can use wooden risers if you don't have the riser base. That's always a good option. Once you put the RA2 Pro inside your machine, here I'm using my M1, I'm going to connect it with the cable that came with the M1 package. If you have a P2, you'll have a different cable, but it'll look very similar. So I'm plugging it into the back of the rotary, then I'll show you how it plugs into the back of the machine as well. One quick note, if you're using Air Assist like I do with the M1, you can go ahead and store this away. Usually it would go under the laser module as you see here, but since we're not going to need it for engraving a tumbler, I'm just going to stow it away using the panels that came with it and place the head right here in this slot. Here's that support module that we'll use to raise the tumbler, making sure that the red dot is at the highest point, and then using the level to ensure that it's going to be level all the way around the tumbler. We attached the cable to the rotary on the inside, so just make sure the other piece is attached to your machine in the back. In the xTool Creative Space software, I'm going to open up my file, which is this fun bee pattern that I bought on Etsy. I'll link to the file down below. I'm just going to move it to the center and then select Engrave as my processing type. After connecting my machine via Wi-Fi, I'll refresh the camera to get a view at our tumbler inside the M1. We need to change the setup from laser flat to laser cylindrical to tell our machine that we're using the Rotary Tool. Once you do that, you'll see this green line pop up. That marks the beginning of the laser processing. First, let's select Chuck under the rotary mode. Then we're going to select our whole design and choose Unite under the Combine menu. This will save us a little bit of engraving time since it processes everything as one single image. I'm going to manually enter my measurements with a power of 90, a speed of 150 with one pass, and then lines per centimeter of 200. You may choose different settings, or you can check out xTool's new laser parameter library to see some of the differences. I'm also entering the perimeter that we measured earlier and then clicking auto measure so that it can measure the distance to the top of the tumbler. We need to rotate our design so that it can be wrapped around the tumbler. Again, this is a full wrap tumbler, so even though it looks like the design is going off of the screen preview, the rotary is going to rotate the tumbler so that this design will be placed around. You just want to make sure that the height is no greater than the powder coating. I need to flip this so that our bees are facing the right way, and then just double check my settings to make sure it's not going to exceed that pink powder coating. Then we'll click Framing, and this gives us a preview of where the laser will actually do the engraving. If the preview looks good, hit Process, and then we'll start engraving our tumbler. I mentioned this is a powder-coated stainless steel tumbler. If you're trying to engrave a regular stainless steel tumbler without a coating, you may need to apply laser marking spray or tempera paint first. Once in a while, you'll get an error message like this one, which just means you might need to clean the laser module again. Let's take a look at our first engraved tumbler. I think it looks really great. You will notice that there's some residue that we're going to clean off in just a minute, but I think this turned out really well. I used just a little bit of rubbing alcohol and paper towels to clean this up, and I think it looks beautiful. It's definitely something worthy of selling on Etsy. Real quickly, let's go through another example. Here I have the jaw components inserted into this larger 30-ounce tumbler. We'll go ahead and level it and measure the perimeter as we did before, but this time I've uploaded my logo as a PNG file and converted it to a Bitmap Engrave project using the Comic 2 filter. And I'm going to click on Trace Image. Then I can play around with these settings depending on how defined I want my image to be. It's a little bit of art and science again, but you can use my same settings or try one of your own. I eventually settled on the settings you see here and then clicked Save. You'll notice in my preview here I have a little bit of masking tape on the actual tumbler. This is going to help me line up the center of my logo with the center of a logo that was already on the tumbler. As we did before, you'll select Chuck as your mode for the rotary. Then I'm going to edit my image just a little bit more to get rid of that white background. You can click on the white areas to remove it and do a little bit more refining. Sometimes it helps to zoom in on your image so that you can really catch any areas where there might still be some parts of the image that you want to remove. Once you're done, you can go back to your preview screen and make any other adjustments. You might have to zoom back out to see the whole image here. But this is where I'll make sure that I move the green line where I need to, or rotate my tumbler a bit to line up the logo with the edge of that painter's tape. Then I'll hit framing and do one final check to make sure it's good to process. This is going to take a lot less time since it's not a full wrap tumbler, but what's great about this rotary tool is I can just pop this tumbler out and put the next one in if I need to make multiple tumblers for a company or a small job that someone's hired me to do. Let me know how you plan to use this tutorial for your small business or hobby, and keep in mind I have other xTool tutorials on the M1 laser machine and the P2 laser machine. I will leave those for you to watch next, and I'll see you next time.